and I am loving this book so much. Really didn't like this. I'm so sorry. Brittany, I hope that we can still be friends. Hey, how's it going? My name is Gabby. Welcome back to my channel, and today we're going to be starting on a reading vlog. This reading vlog has been in the works for months, because today we're going to be doing a video where my best friend, Brittany, controls my TBR for a week. She's been one of my closest friends for the last 5 years, and what's really cool is that we actually met because of booktube, and she has been reading books for months in preparation for this video, and today she's going to be recommending me 5 different books. You know, the really exciting thing about asking my friend Brittany to do this is that we have very similar reading tastes for the most part, because not only do we read a lot of the same genres, you know, like horror, thriller, and romance are definitely our main genres. And not only do we read a lot of the same genres, but we do tend to have a lot of very similar taste when it comes to said genres. So I am really excited to see which books Brittany ended up picking. I did ask if she could film little video clips like recommending me each one of the books, and she did that, and she has sent the videos over, so we're gonna be reacting to those. But before we do jump into today's vlog, I just wanted to take a minute to thank today's video sponsor, which is a new sponsor on this channel, and that is Bombas. I actually already was pretty familiar with Bombas because I had heard that they had some of the best socks in the world, and after trying them out myself, I definitely see the hype, and I think they're absolutely correct when they say that they make the most comfortable socks in the history of feet. I got a few different kinds of socks to try, like these ones are the all sport ankle socks, and then I also did get a few pairs of the half calf socks, because you know, it gets cold here in the winters in Washington, and I love socks that are this length. And like, how cute are these? I think my favorite out of all of the longer ones that I got have got to be these white ones or the green ones. I just love the design on these so much, and something that I'm loving about all of these socks is that they have this honeycomb arch support for a really snug and comfortable fit, and they have seamless toe for no rubbing and no irritation. They also do have the cushioned footbed without the bulk, which is something that is so impressive to me, especially because when you're feeling the socks in your hand, you can really feel how thick that cushion is, but then when they're on my feet, they feel really lightweight. And I heard that these socks are so good that they stay up when you kick off your shoes, so I had to put that to the test myself, and I was very impressed and happy with the way that these socks stayed on my feet. And I think by far the best thing about this brand is that this brand is donating an item with every purchase. And this brand is making the top 3 items that are requested in homeless shelters, like socks, underwear, and t-shirts. And so with every purchase, you are helping and you are making a difference. And they've already had over 150 million items donated, which is so awesome. I know for myself, when it comes to deciding which brands I want to support, it's really important to me to support a brand that's giving back to the community. Thank you so much to Bombas for sponsoring today's video. You can use the link down in my description and use my code gabbyreads to get 20% off your first purchase. And now let's go ahead and see which books we're going to be reading for this video. Okay, hello, it is now the day. My friend Brittany has sent over all of the video recommendations, and I'm so excited to see what she picked. I thought about maybe only reacting to these videos like one at a time throughout the vlog, but then I also thought I think it would be best for me to listen to all of the recommendations at the start of this, because it might take me a while to gather all of the books that I need to read for this video, so I'm going to be reacting to all 5 videos that she sent, and I'm really excited and nervous because I feel like there could be books in here that I've never heard of before, and I feel like if there's anybody in this world that I trust with like giving me a really good book recommendation, it is my friend Brittany. Alright, so let's go ahead and watch the first video that she sent over and see what she picked.
Hey Gabby, I have some recommendations for you. I've got 5.
Ooh.
Hopefully these are all at least a fun time, even if it's a roast. I'm just hoping that you have some fun with these. First book that I want to recommend is called The Mashup by Laura Marie Myers. It is a debut novel that is coming out in July. And The Mashup is a rom-com about this woman who wakes up on her 35th birthday in a life that was created from her 7th grade MASH game. And that includes her brother's best friend being a part of this game. And she has to get him to fall in love with her in order for her to escape the game. This is a book that's built on nostalgia because it's early 2000s.
Love it.
But it has a lot of the 90s nostalgia that we love. There's a lot of elements that this author puts into her book. You can tell it came from a place of that nostalgia and that love for the decade. It kind of reminds me a little bit of 13 Going on 30 meets a little bit of Barbie.
Oh my god, I love that.
So if you enjoyed that, which I think you do, you might have fun with this one. So I hope you love it.
Oh my god. I'm so glad that I decided to watch this because she did mention that there might be a book that I'm gonna have to like request on NetGalley early because this one actually doesn't come out until July, I think she said. But this is so exciting and I've never heard of this book before. It's called The Mashup. Oh my gosh, this is amazing because I've been loving books that kind of have like a 2000s nostalgia kind of a vibe to them. And I love 13 Going on 30. Like everything that she just mentioned right there are some of my favorite things. So how have I not heard of this book before? I don't know, but I can't wait to read it. So hopefully I do get approved on NetGalley so that I can read this one. I'll have to request it right now. Okay, let's see what the second one is.
The next book I want to recommend is called A Deal with the Devil by Elizabeth Orr.
Yes!
This is the first
I already have
book in
this
a
book.
series of 4, I want to say. This is a rom-com that is about a woman who gets hired on as a very short-term assistant to this jerk of a Hollywood surgeon. This is like grumpy sunshine. They had a good back and forth. This has a lot of tropes that I think that you would enjoy. The book had me laughing out loud.
Oh, I love that.
And I still think about it.
Yes. I was hoping that there would be at least one book on this list that like maybe I already own the book, maybe it's already on my TBR, and this could not be better because I do own the book A Deal with the Devil, and I was actually going to be reading this book for my Screaming Color readathon that I just hosted in February, but I never got around to it because it has red on the cover, so I was going to read it for that readathon. But this is so perfect because this is a book that I've been wanting to read for a while now, so very excited to add this one to the TBR for the video. Okay, let's go to the next one.
Next book that I want to recommend is called The Neighbor by London Clark, and this is a thriller that has a couple different elements to it that I think you might really enjoy. It's a character-driven thriller and one that really gets under your skin. It has great pacing, it's got the twists and turns, it's got this unnerving, overarching sense of dread and several layers to it. The Neighbor is about a mother of 4, recently divorced, and she starts getting interested in this new neighbor of hers, and things might get a little bit unhinged, maybe.
Okay, very excited to add a thriller to the mix. Okay, I just pulled out my laptop because I've never heard of this book before. I've never seen this cover before either. The Neighbor by London Clark. This one actually first published in March 2021. Wow, how have I not heard of this one? Oh, maybe because it only has 800 ratings. Wow, that's wild. So not too many people have read this one, but it is listed under horror and thriller, which really intrigues me. I'll have to see if my library has this one. All right, moving on to the fourth video.
The next book that I want to recommend is The Mean Ones by Tatiana Shlody. It is a folk horror that kind of gives off the same air that Midsommar and Yellow Jackets gives off, but it's its own unique beast. The Mean Ones is told in a dual timeline. We've got present day, we've got 17 years ago, and we are following a woman who goes on a couple's cabin retreat and really weird stuff.
Oh God.
The imagery, the horror imagery is so unsettling. Ooh. I read this last year and I still think about it. Ooh. And I think you would really appreciate the horror elements in here. I also really liked the character development so much in this book. You'd really like the atmosphere, the setting, and I think you'll just have a good time being a little bit unnerved and a little creeped out by the woods.
I've never heard of this book either. What the heck? How are there so many books that I've never heard of? Oh, okay, wait, I've seen this book cover before. Okay, for some reason, I have seen this book cover before, and I always thought that it was young adult. For some reason. That cover's really cool, by the way. I get so freaked out by like antler stuff in horror. So like this is truly terrifying. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited and so curious to read this one. I'll have to see if my library has this book available. Okay, and let's go ahead and see the final book, the 5th one. I'm so excited to see what else.
The next book that I want to recommend is called Hiding Lies by Stephanie Rose. And this is a horror thriller that I really hope that you like.
Hiding Lies?
This is cuckoo bananas. It's bonkers.
Oh, okay.
It has it's told from 2 points of view. One point of view is following a forensic photographer as she is working a case, and then the other point of view is a serial killer's point of view.
Ooh,
and my favorite thing about this, other than it's crazy, it keeps you on your toes, it's fast-paced, is that it is set in the Pacific Northwest. It is so atmospheric.
Very cool.
I really felt like the setting, like the location itself, was a character. It's basically equal parts atmospheric thriller and then weirdo horror. Like a weirdo.
I love weirdo horror.
It's so much fun.
Hiding Lies. Dude, there's another book that I've never heard of before. How does she keep doing this? Oh my gosh. Okay, well, first of all, this cover is horrifying. That's so scary. scary. This is another one that feels like it was kind of like under the radar because it came out in 2025, but it only has 300 ratings on Goodreads. So those are the 5 books that I'm gonna be adding to my TBR for this video. I could not be more excited to start on this. And like, thank you so much to my friend Brittany for like taking the time to read these books, to recommend them, to film the videos. I really appreciate her so much. But also like my mind is kind of blown that I've never heard of 4 out of these 5 books. Like, what are you talking about? I love that we have a good mix here of like some romance books and then some more like thriller and horror stuff. So I'm really curious to give these books a shot. I'm gonna see how I can acquire some of these books. I might have to buy some of them, or I'm gonna see if my library has them, but I'll check back in with you once I start reading something. Hello, I wanted to check in with my first reading update because I was able to download The Neighbor onto my Kindle. It was only like $4 on Amazon to download it to my Kindle, and I've been reading in bed all morning. I'm now 161 pages in and I just hit chapter 26. And this book kind of is on the lengthier side because this Kindle copy is 394 pages, but I'm about 40% of the way through the book, so I thought now would be a good time to check in, especially because this book has been so creepy so far and I'm so invested. So in this story, we're following this woman named Claire, and she's 39 years old. She's recently divorced from this guy and she has 4 daughters. The oldest daughter is about 14 years old and then the youngest daughter is about 6 years old. And most of the story is taking place in the weeks leading up to Halloween, which just makes the atmosphere in this book so good. It's very like stormy, spooky October nights kind of a vibe. And Claire's the type of character that like she likes to live her life a little bit on the edge. She has these like secret outings that like nobody else knows about, where she like goes out to a nightclub or something and she pretends to be someone else for a night. And the story is really about how this new guy moves in next door to her and his name is Steele Nolan. And a lot of the women in the neighborhood are like, oh my god, he's so hot. Like, what's his story? He owns his own business. He drives this truck. And then Steele seems like he's especially interested in Claire. You know, the first 100 pages of this book really felt more like a thriller because it's more of like this mystery about like who is this guy next door and what does he want. There's also like a weird mystery going on because our main character Claire, she's a therapist and she has this one client named Whitney, and it's very strange because a lot of the things that Whitney is talking about are like exactly the things that Claire is going through in her life as well. So it's kind of almost getting to the point where it's kind of like eerie and weird. I also think in the first 100 pages, it really does feel a little bit like a romance as well, as she's starting to get to know this guy Steele. But I feel like ever since around the 100 page mark, it's really starting to lean into horror in a way that is so fun for me. This is exactly the kind of shit that I love in books because I love when it has like the perfect balance of thriller, romance, horror, because as she's starting to get closer to this guy Steele and as she's getting to know him more, weird things are starting to happen in her house and like with her daughters. I will say that my one gripe so far with this book is that Claire just seems a little bit too trusting and a little bit too naive with like what's going on with her, because she'll have these like moments of awareness where she's like, oh my god, like who even is this guy and like can I really trust him? But then she just like continues to, you know, be around him. And also like some of the creepy things that are happening with her daughters in this house, like damn dude, if this were me, not only would I leave the house, like I would leave the country. Like what do you mean? That is so creepy. And she just doesn't seem nearly as creeped out as I would be in this situation. Like damn, I think this has a lot of elements in it that I really like in horror novels. I mean, something that I love in horror is when you have the children and like creepy things are happening with the children. Like for example, there's a stuffed animal and like the youngest daughter keeps saying that the cat is like whispering to her at night, like shut up. And then all of the daughters are also seeing this like shadow man in the house, like bitch. Oh my god, it's so creepy. And I am loving the atmosphere in this. So many little details and things that freak me out personally. So yeah, it's only about 1:30 in the afternoon. I think I'm just gonna continue to stay in bed reading today. I might actually try to go to the gym in a little while, but it's like such a gloomy, rainy day. It really just makes me want to stay indoors, and especially because the book is so good that I can't put it down. So we're starting off with one that feels very promising. I could see myself giving this 4 stars, maybe even 5 stars, depending on how the rest of it goes. Okay, hello, it is now after 4:30 in the afternoon. I just got out of the gym and I just finished reading The Neighbor. I forgot how difficult it is to read the Kindle when I'm on the treadmill, when I don't have the audiobook. I mean, I did put on my headphones because I was wanting to listen to like some ambiance because the gym is just so loud. So I just threw on my headphones and I locked in and I read the last 80 pages of this on my Kindle while I was on the treadmill. The fact that I just devoured this nearly 400-page book in one afternoon, this has not happened to me in a while. Like this book was just so addicting. There was something about it. it. I think I really love this book because it had so many elements of horror that I really love and I really look for. And like I was mentioning earlier, like it has the perfect balance of horror, romance, thriller, mystery, and the writing was just so engaging the entire time. I was texting my friend Brittany as I was reading this and I was like, oh my gosh, where are Sam and Dean when you need them? Because in a lot of ways, this book really does feel kind of like you're watching an episode of Supernatural. I mean, if you're a fan of the show Supernatural, I'm sure that you would notice like many things in this book that would remind you of the show. And so that added an extra layer of fun to this for me. And it was funny because Brittany was messaging me back being like, oh my God, I know the Supernatural vibes. I'm just really impressed with this author's writing in general because it was so atmospheric, so moody. I love the stormy atmosphere in this book and the way there's so much going on in this small town, and this book has so many layers. There were all these little moments in the plot that kept surprising me, like little twisty things that I didn't see coming. I'm really torn over what I want to rate this book because as much as I want to give this 5 stars, I don't know if it was like the perfect 5-star for me. I'm probably going to give this like 4.5. I think the only reason why I'm holding myself back from wanting to give this the full 5 stars is because it did feel a little bit long, especially in the end. Like after around the 200 page mark, there was a brief period of like 50 pages where I was like, okay, like I'm ready for things to pick up a little bit. And then especially in those last 50 pages, it just kind of felt like it was going on a little bit long. And I do think the very, very end of the book was just okay. But gosh, I think I still want to give this 4.5 stars because of how much fun I had reading this book today. This is the best part about when you have a real life friend who can like recommend you books, because Brittany knows exactly what I like in horror. And this book had so many things that I love in horror. It made me really excited too because I noticed in the back of the book, it talks about how this author has a new book called The Meadows. And it kind of sounds like it's going to be similar to this one because this one also says The Meadows is a gripping supernatural thriller. So like shit, I'm going to have to check out the other book by this author too because I really, really like her writing and I want to read more of her stuff. But I almost think that they're doing this book a little bit of a disservice by calling it The Neighbor and having the cover look the way it does. Because when I look at this title and this cover, my first impression is that this book is like a mystery thriller. I mean, I don't know what I would have titled this book personally, but I feel like The Neighbor is a little bit vague for how crazy of a plot this book has. I just don't really think that this book cover does the story any justice. But anyway, right before I went to the gym, I did swing by the library and I picked up The Goods because my hold for Still Into You by Erin Connor ended up coming in, which I'm so excited. This is a romance book that I've been dying to read. It just recently published. And then I also got my hold in for Hiding Lies, which is one of the horror books that I'm going to be reading for this video. And I'm extra excited because I noticed on top there's a blurb from Nick Cutter, the author of The Troop, aka one of my favorite books ever. So I was like, no way, Nick Cutter blurbed this book. That has me even more excited to read this one. But anyway, I think I'm just going to head back to the house. I need to take a shower. I need to wash my hair. I might pick up some food for dinner, and then later tonight, me and my mom are going to continue watching Supernatural Season 9. I think we're a little bit more than halfway through Season 9 at this point. We probably have like 8 or 9 episodes left. And I think tomorrow I want to get started on the next book for this video. I'm thinking one of the romance books will be next.
I used to jump without looking. Didn't care if I fell too hard. Now I keep my hands in my pockets. Overthink every scar.
Okay, hello. It is now the next afternoon. It's about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I have so many updates because last night I did end up watching more of Season 9 of Supernatural with my mom. We watched about like 4 episodes last night, and it was so funny because we ended up watching this episode called Bloodlines, and that's like one of the lowest rated episodes on the show, and it's actually really funny because I guess that episode was supposed to be like a back pilot for a potential spin-off series that never happened, and I can definitely see why the spin-off series never happened because the episode just wasn't very good, and it was so weird because like Sam and Dean were like barely even in the episode, but now we only have like a few episodes left of Season 9. I think we're actually going to be able to finish Season 9 tonight. I think we only have like 3 left. And then this morning I started reading A Deal with the Devil, and I decided that I wanted to come down to one of my local coffee shops in the area, and I was doing some reading in the coffee shop for hours this afternoon. And then also because I was in the area, I decided to drive down to the local bookstore that's over here. I had to swing by their ARC shelf because I'm always finding so many incredible things on that ARC shelf, and I was able to pick up 2 books while I was at the bookstore this afternoon. I got Greta and Valdin, and this one is a literary fiction book that I've had my eyes on for such a long time. And this one actually published in 2024, so it was really cool to find an ARC copy of the book there. And then I also ended up getting this one called So Old, So Young. This is actually one that I heard about very recently, and I think this one's also a literary fiction book, but the cover just really intrigues me, and I've been hearing some really good things about this one. So I picked this up from the bookstore as well. But anyway, I wanted to update you because I've actually finished reading A Deal with the Devil. I was gonna update you sooner, but I ended up spending the entire afternoon in that coffee shop, and I just finished the last couple of pages as I was rolling up to the bookstore. And so in this story, this one is a romance where we're following this woman named Talia, and she kind of gets forced into this job where she's gonna be the assistant to this guy named Hayes Flynn. And this guy Hayes, he's a plastic surgeon, and he's British, and he's kind of an asshole. And so this book definitely has the kind of like hate to love energy going on, and the forced proximity as she's like, you know, forced to work with him. She's working as his assistant for a while. And I don't know if you can tell by the way that I'm talking about this book, but I thought this one was just okay. I don't know, there were a lot of elements in this book that I did really enjoy. I mean, I love the fact that we're following this woman named Talia, and I love that she's a writer, and she does have a really close relationship with her sister, which are both things that I enjoyed, even though she is writing a fantasy book, technically, so like that element didn't necessarily intrigue me, but I still loved following a writer, and I loved hearing about her process as she was writing the book. I also really am a big fan of like the enemies to lovers thing, and there were even a few moments of like fake dating in this book that I also really enjoyed. And as much as I loved some of their banter, like especially in the first half of this book, I just feel like I never really warmed up to Hayes as a character. Like, I definitely preferred her out of the two characters in this book because she would definitely have her moments where she was like making me laugh and making me smile, and she was really cute and quirky, and she was just very endearing, and she had a great personality. But for some reason, Hayes is like one of those love interests that kind of feel like the typical love interest in a romance book that like sometimes it works for me and sometimes it doesn't. He's this rich, charming British asshole of a man who's like rough around the edges, but he has a heart of gold once you get to know him. I feel like sometimes love interests like this can work so well for me, and then sometimes I just feel so meh about them. I just didn't really care that much about Hayes as a character, and I feel like he never really grew on me. This is actually the second book that I've read from this author. At the end of last year, I ended up reading her other book that was called My Favorite Bad Decision, and I think I liked that one a little bit more than I enjoyed this one. I mean, I think there was just something missing for me from this romance book because I never once felt like I was like giddy or like kicking my feet over them, at least not in the same way that I did with the other book that I read from this author. And like the book wasn't bad, it just wasn't great. I'm probably gonna end up giving this one around 3 stars. That's what feels right. I wasn't obsessed with them in the way that I thought I would be. And it's so weird to say, but this one actually did remind me a little bit of The Wall of Winnipeg and Me, but like not as entertaining, because I loved, okay, The Wall of Winnipeg and Me was like one of my favorite romances ever. And I think it only reminded me of that book because of the dynamic between these two, because in The Wall of Winnipeg and Me is another kind of situation where like he's a star athlete and then she's an assistant to him. But I think the love interest in The Wall of Winnipeg and Me ended up working for me so much better than this guy. But I'm really glad to have finally read it because I've been so curious about this author's books for a long time, and I'm starting to feel like maybe her books aren't really for me. I mean, I always enjoy her books, but I never love them, you know what I mean? Last night I did end up finishing season 9, and I loved season 9. I had a really fun time with it. I will link down below the TikTok that I just made talking about all of my spoilery thoughts if you want to see that. I've been doing that for every single season of Supernatural, so if you ever want to hear any of my spoilery thoughts, I'm talking about it a lot over on my TikTok. But anyway, I do have an exciting reading update because I've been reading The Mean Ones. I was able to get the ebook checked out from my library, and then I've also been listening to some of this on Spotify for the audiobook, and I just hit chapter 20. I'm now 152 pages in. I'm just a little bit more than halfway through it, so I thought now would be a good time to check in because this one is a horror book that I am really enjoying. This book just immediately pulled me in with the atmosphere and the vibes. So what I like about this book is at the start of it, it's taking place in 2023. We're following this character named Sadie, and she has this boyfriend named Lucas who's like kind of a douchebag. I don't know, they're like working out in the gym together, and she keeps talking about how like he's the kind of guy that like watches himself in the mirror when they're having sex. Like just in general, he kind of gives me like icky vibes, you know? But the first chapter ends up setting up some really interesting stuff because she keeps talking about how like she loves going to the gym because that's the only time that the voices in her head will like quiet down. And she keeps talking about this ghost that's like haunting her. She seems like she has this history that she's not telling her boyfriend about. And then her boyfriend Lucas, he gets this phone call from his friends and they're like, hey, why don't you come down to like our place over the weekend? They have this place that's like in the middle of the woods. It's in this place called Pike Forest in Colorado. And she's like trying to figure out how to say no because she doesn't want to to go back into a forest. And then in alternate chapters, we are getting some flashbacks to the year of 2006 when she was, you know, like a young teenage girl going to this camp, and we're kind of slowly learning the story about like what happened to her two friends that were at this camp with her. This character's perspective is definitely one of those like unreliable narrators because you don't really know if she fully has like a grip on reality, because she'll keep having these moments where she goes to the other side, is what she says, and it's almost like she's hallucinating. She's like seeing things that aren't there, and then she's hearing this voice in her head. And it's so funny because she said the voice in her head is really sexy, and she's named the voice Damon. And I was like, okay, say less. I'm gonna be picturing Damon Salvatore from this point forward. I will say though that some of the imagery in this book, as far as like the other side and like some of her hallucinations, it is a little bit like hard for me to follow sometimes, like what the fuck is even happening. And like maybe that's the point, like maybe it is supposed to feel a little bit like fever dreamy, but I am really liking this book a lot for so many reasons. I mean, I really love like the forest atmosphere. I love the mystery of like trying to figure out exactly what happened to her friends, and I also do love books that kind of like explore toxic female friendships, especially when it involves like teenage girls. Like it definitely has that like Mean Girls energy between them, which I do really enjoy. I was starting to get a little bit bored with the story like as we were approaching the 50% mark, because I'm like, okay, like it's starting to feel repetitive. It's like a lot of the same things were happening in the present chapters and in the flashback chapters, but now we just got to a point in the book where I'm like, oh, okay, that's interesting. It's like it's really pulling me back in right now. So I'm hoping that the second half of this book just gets even more unhinged. I feel like it could really go that way. So I'm really enjoying this one a lot so far. I think I'm gonna head to the gym soon because I really just want to get on a treadmill and do some walking while I'm reading this one. It's such a gloomy, rainy day today, so it's making me feel really lazy and like I don't want to leave my bed, but I know that I should get out there. So I think I'm gonna do that, and it shouldn't take me too much longer to finish up the rest of this one. Okay, hi, hello. I wanted to check in with an update. I don't know if you can hear, but it's pouring rain on my car right now. You probably can't hear it because of the microphone, but it's kind of magical. It hasn't dumped like this in a minute. But anyway, I wanted to update you because I just got out of the gym. I was on that treadmill for like close to an hour, and I was able to finish reading the rest of the Mean Ones. And I have so many thoughts about this book. I think for the first half of this book, I was really enjoying it, especially because of the atmosphere. It was feeling like it was going to be around a 4-star read, but then in the second half, it was starting to lose me a little bit, and I felt like the second half was maybe like 2.5 to 3 stars. So like I don't really know how I'm gonna rate this book overall. It's feeling like it's gonna land somewhere between like a 3 and a 3.5 for me. There were so many things that I really did enjoy about this book, and I definitely see the reference to like Yellow Jackets. Like I really think if you like Yellow Jackets, you would probably like the vibe of this book, especially because even the style of storytelling does feel like Yellow Jackets with the present day chapters, and then you get the flashbacks of like when all the young girls were kind of like toxic. It really does have a lot of similarities to Yellow Jackets, but I really think the main reason why I didn't end up loving this book as much as I was hoping to is because this main character was driving me a little bit nuts with like some of her thoughts. It was all just becoming very repetitive to like be in her head, and it was happening in both timelines, where like in the present day timeline she would constantly be wondering like, is this real? Is this really happening? Is it a hallucination? What's going on? And like some of her hallucinations would be so hard for me to even follow like what the fuck was even happening. But then also like in the flashback chapters when she's dealing with her friends who are like these young girls that are so pretty, she keeps having all of these thoughts that are like insecurities. You know, she likes this boy and she's constantly wondering if she's good enough for him or if he's gonna notice her, and she's constantly like comparing herself to her friends, which I get is just something that young girls do. So it's not like it's necessarily unrealistic, but it was just so annoying to see the same insecurities popping up again and again and again. And I feel like those insecurities definitely followed her into her adulthood, because it's like she's dating this guy Lucas, you know, who's like kind of a complete douchebag. And there would just be so many moments like so late into the book where I was like, girl, why are we still putting up with his bullshit? Like you really just need to kick this man to the curb. And it was just really frustrating to read because I don't feel like our main character had a lot of growth throughout the book. I mean, yes, this book does end up having that kind of like good for her moment, but in my opinion, it takes a little bit long to get there. Like it was just really hard to see her defend this man constantly. That was just like so awful to her. There was literally this line when I was like 80% of the way through the book that I underlined it in my Kindle, and I was like, girl, are you for real? But the biggest reason why I'm still thinking I might give this book like 3.5 stars instead of just 3 stars is because because there was a plot twist that I personally didn't see coming, that I was like, oh, wait a damn minute. There were some layers to it that I wasn't expecting, and I thought that was kind of interesting. I don't know, there were elements about the second half of this book that I really liked, and then some elements that I really didn't care about. So that's why this one is kind of hard to rate. I don't know, it's very like middle of the road for me. I don't have super strong feelings about this one, but I can definitely see why this is one that Brittany would want to recommend to me, because the vibes were immaculate, especially in the first half. I love horror books like this that kind of like take place in the wilderness and a character has a mysterious past. Those are definitely some of my favorite things to read. I just wish this main character was like a little bit less frustrating to read from her perspective. I also did notice that apparently this author has written a lot of young adult in the past, and I think this is this author's first attempt at writing adult. I do think at parts of this book you can kind of tell that this author typically writes young adult, especially in those flashback chapters, you know, with the teenage girls in this book. Like, it was definitely feeling more young adult. I don't know if I'm going to be able to read anything tomorrow because I actually have a baby shower that I'm going to for one of my friends, Katie, tomorrow. I can't believe one of my closest friends is going to be having a baby soon. Like, that is not even processing in my brain. So it should be really nice to go and see her tomorrow and go to the baby shower. I might try to get started on one of the next books before I leave tomorrow, but like, we'll see. Hi, hello. It has been like 2 days since the last time that I updated this vlog, because yesterday I did end up going to my friend Katie's baby shower, and it was so much fun and it was so nice, and it was actually like the first baby shower that I've been to for like one of my friends who's like my age. So that was like a really crazy experience, and it was so good to catch up with Katie and Josh. And then after the baby shower yesterday, I ended up going to my sister's apartment and I was hanging out with Rachel and Obed for a few hours. It was just a really great Saturday. And then this morning I ended up going to one of my favorite local coffee spots because I really wanted to pick up an iced coffee and a scone, and I have been reading the Mashup on my Kindle. I actually did get approved for this one on NetGalley, thank God. I actually heard back that same afternoon that I requested the book. They got back to me just within a few hours and approved my request, so that was amazing. But I wanted to update you because I just hit chapter 13 of this book and I'm about 48% of the way through it, and I am loving this book so much. Like, this is exactly what I was in the mood for. Like, this is exactly the kind of book that I needed right now, and my friend Brittany was not kidding about the 13 going on 30 vibes that this book has. Like, are you kidding me? So in this story, we're following this protagonist named Ruby, and at the start of this book, she's turning 35 years old and it's her birthday. She has this twin brother named Ryan, and they've pretty much like spent every single birthday together. And in the first chapter, we learn about how she's been dating this guy Connor for a few years, and they are definitely both like the planner types, you know, like she's an accountant and she lives a very like quiet and safe life. And there's a moment where she thinks that maybe Connor is about to propose to her, and then he's like, oh no, actually, I just got this job offer in New York City and I'm going to be leaving very soon. And she's like, what? And so now she's really starting to question if she even wants to be with this guy Connor anymore. And it's really cute because she has this best friend in the book named Bridget, and her best friend, she ends up bringing her this little like MASH thing from when they were like 13 years old. MASH used to be one of my favorite games to play as a kid, so even like hearing about it, it was just so much fun and so nostalgic because, you know, MASH is the game where like you list all of the potential things for your future. Like, if you're gonna live in a mansion, apartment, shack, or a house, and then you list all of your potential love interests, your job, your car, and then you pick a number and start crossing things out, and you basically like decide your future. In the MASH game that they had from when they were 13, the love interest that she ended up with in that game of MASH was her brother's best friend, this guy named Penn that she grew up with, that she never really had any feelings for, and she actually finds him to be very annoying. But the 13 going on 30 vibes are so strong because after everybody sings her happy birthday and she's like staring at the candles on the cake, it says, as I stare into the flame, I wish for just a moment that I could meet who I might have become if life had gone a little differently, if I'd been a little less afraid, if I'd held on to more of the me that I used to be. I close my eyes, blow out the candle, and think, I wish I was still like her. Like, is that not the most 13 going on 30 inspired thing you've ever read? Like, how cute is that? And so the general premise of this story is that she wakes up in this like almost like an alternate reality where like her MASH game results have basically come to life, and she's living in this like Technicolor mansion. She's driving a tie-dye Jeep, and her dream job was actually owning this like disco themed roller skating rink, and that's what she's doing now in this alternate reality. And of course, in this alternate reality, her love interest is this guy named Penn, who is her brother's best friend. She really knows him very well, but she's never had feelings for him before, so she's feeling very confused. And I'm just loving this so much. This book has been so nostalgic because there are so many references to things that were really big in the 90s and like the late 2000s. I mean, just a few of the things that I jotted down that were mentioned mentioned were like Lisa Frank, Gushers, Pop-Tarts, Glitter, NSYNC, ringtones, flip phones, Capri Suns, laser tag, diaries. The list truly just goes on for all of the like nostalgic things that are being mentioned. And I just really adore Ruby as a character. I don't know, there's something about her that's reminding me a lot of like Lorelai Gilmore. She just has that kind of vibe to her. Like she's reminding me a lot of Lorelai. And then this guy, the love interest Penn, I mean, he's not nearly as grumpy as Luke is on Gilmore Girls, but he does do like the backwards baseball cap thing. It mentioned that right at the start and I was like, oh, okay. So naturally, I'm picturing Luke and Lorelai for these characters and I'm having a great time with that. But like they have such cute chemistry. Oh my God, like there have already been scenes where I'm like kicking my feet and screaming. Like the tension is so good. There's an element of this story where they kind of have like a roommates to lovers vibe going on and the banter between them is just so freaking good. There was a scene that I just read where they were talking about like love languages and I think it just ruined my life. There was also a really cute laser tag scene that also just ruined my life. There was also a really great thoughtful moment where she was talking to her brother. I loved thinking about how like our life choices impact our siblings as well. When she said maybe it's because my choices affect him the most, because of course they do. We grew up defined by the Venn diagram everybody used to compare us, our parents, friends, teachers, coaches, strangers who met us on the playground. They pointed out what was all me, what was him, and where we overlapped. And that's the lens which I've been perceived all my life. Sometimes I wished I could stand on my own, but mostly I found it grounding. I was always connected to something, to him. He was the mirror through which I could see each piece of myself reflected and refracted. And I was like, damn if I don't relate to that, because I am very close to my younger sister and we've been best friends since the day we were born. And I really loved that Venn diagram metaphor because I feel like there is so much of me that overlaps with my sister and we have very little differences where we don't overlap. And I totally relate to that feeling of like I could never stand on my own as something separate from my sister because we have so much overlap in who we are. I don't know, it was just one of those moments for me that makes you like stop and think about not only your own life, but like your siblings' lives and like what would look different about their lives if I had made different decisions about my life. It's all just very fascinating to me and I love books like this anyway. I love anytime books kind of explore the idea of like an alternate reality or like what could have been if you made different choices in your life, what would that look like? I really truly live for books that have themes like this. Like it's one of my favorite things to read about. But then on top of that, to have the cutest romance. Oh my God, I absolutely adore Ruby and Penn. Like they are so cute. Every single scene I'm underlining so many things and like they're actually making me giddy and I'm like screaming, which is the best feeling. Like this is exactly how I want to feel when I'm reading a romance book. Like they are so cute. It's already 3 o'clock in the afternoon, so I'm just gonna sit here on the couch and continue reading this afternoon. I'm not exactly sure like what I want to do for dinner or how I'm gonna spend the rest of my night, but I'm hoping that I can make good progress on this book today because of how much I'm loving it. Like I'm finding it really hard to put down right now.
Keep me honest, hold me still. The quiet pulls me in again. I'll own the way.
Hey, hello, I am checking in with an update because it's about 8:30 at night. We were just watching more of season 10 of Supernatural, and tonight we watched the episode that was called Fan Fiction. Dude, that was one of my favorite episodes of the entire series. Like, I love when they do stuff like that. Like, Supernatural really is such a unique show, just in the way that, like, they are so aware of, like, what the fans are saying about the show. And, like, I love any time in the show where they do stuff like this, where they, like, break the fourth wall, or it's all feeling very meta. Oh my God, it was just so funny. It was so great, and, like, one of my top favorite episodes of the entire series. So, like, that was really great to watch tonight. And I'm really happy to report that I have finished reading the Mashup. I actually finished it a few hours ago, and I knew the second that I finished this book that it was going to be 5 stars. Like, I absolutely loved this. This book was just so perfect in every way possible because, like I was mentioning earlier, like, I love books that explore this kind of subject. I mean, anytime a character gets dropped into some kind of alternate reality like this, like, I eat that shit up. I absolutely love it. But I feel like this book was especially great because the romance in it was actually so cute. And I loved all of the 90s vibes and the early 2000s references, and they were so consistent throughout the book. Like, I wrote down even more things that were mentioned, like Limited 2 and Hilary Duff and the Goo Goo Dolls and Beanbags and Dawson's Creek and Gilmore Girls. There were just so many fun and, like, nostalgic references, even to things that, like, I completely forgot about from my childhood, which was really cool. But I think this book was an easy 5-star for me, not only because the plot was, like, very unique and very cool. I love the idea of, like, a MASH game kind of, like, coming to life. I was, like, highlighting so many things, and I was even texting my friend Brittany. I was like, oh my God, there's no way he just said that to her. Like, they were just so cute. And I really do think if you were someone who, like, really shipped Luke and Lorelai from Gilmore Girls, I don't know, man, there was something about them. They were reminding me a lot of Luke and Lorelai. This character Penn in the story, he's a lot softer of a character than Luke is, and he's not exactly grumpy in the same way. He reminds me a lot of Luke's character anyway because of the way that he wears, like, the backwards baseball caps and the way that he's, like, very in tune to, like, every little thing that she says. Like, he remembers everything that she says. And the way that it just feels like one of those love stories between them where, like, they've been pining after each other other for years and they didn't even realize it really. And I mean, come on, this girl Ruby, like, oh my gosh, she is so Lorelai to me in every way. I mean, the fact that in her like MASH universe, she was driving a Jeep, and I love that she like really loves anything sweet like Pop-Tarts, and she loves girly things. I also do think for the most part, this one is gonna be like the perfect summer romance because so much of this book has a lot of really strong summer vibes, and I actually think I would highly recommend. I think this would be a really fun book to read with like a book club, or maybe to like buddy read with one of your friends, because I feel like this is the kind of book that you might have a lot of very strong reactions to, and you might need to like highlight something and send it to a friend and be like, what the fuck? Because that was definitely my experience today. Like, I'm so glad that my friend Brittany has already read this, because I was sending her all these little things being like, oh my god, they're so cute. And this book really does feel like it's a book for the millennials, you know? It's so nostalgic. Those were such special days, and I really love that this book really captures the nostalgia of that time period. So wow, we have a 5-star. I am so excited and like so relieved. I could not be more thrilled about it. I mean, I got really close to giving 5 stars to that first book that I read, The Neighbor. Anyway, tomorrow I will be reading the final book for this video. Hiding Lies is the last one that I have left. Okay, hello, it is now the next afternoon and I wanted to check in for the final update of this vlog because I have just finished reading Hiding Lies. I had a really early start to my day. I was able to read the first half of this book earlier today when I was doing all of the things, and then afterwards I decided to come down here to the coffee shop and finish reading the book while I was in there. I unfortunately was not a really big fan of this one, and I actually kind of hated it. Like, I'm so sorry! You know, right from the beginning of this book, I was like, okay, this is feeling like it's gonna be around like 2 stars. Like, I wasn't vibing with it from the very beginning because I just didn't really like the writing in this one at all. And you know, in hindsight, like, yes, maybe I should have DNF'd, but like, I didn't want to DNF it because it was the last book that I was reading for this video. But then as the story kept going, it just kept getting worse. And then I was like, oh my god, like, is this gonna be a 1 star? I mean, if the book wasn't as short as it is, like, it's only 230 pages, because otherwise maybe I would have DNF'd. But because it was such an easy read and so quick to get through, I was like, no, like, it's okay, I can see this through. But I think I might actually give this book 1 star. Like, I really, really didn't like this. I'm so sorry. Brittany, I hope that we can still be friends. So in this story, we are following from 2 different perspectives. We have this girl named Lydia, and we have this guy named Adam. All of this book is taking place in Portland, Oregon, like in the Pacific Northwest, which was really cool. And this woman, Lydia, that we're following, she is a forensic photographer. And then the guy, Adam, that we're following, he's actually a serial killer. And so in Adam's chapters, you're just kind of reading about him as he's like stalking his victims and killing them. And then in Lydia's perspective, you're kind of reading about how she has this like dark, morbid side, even though she's working for forensics. It's almost like she's like a wannabe Dexter, in my opinion, but she's like not nearly as interesting. I think my biggest issue with this book was that the writing, in my opinion, was so bad. Because like, first opening chapter, it's just like you're getting this info dump about this girl Lydia's life and how she grew up in foster care and how she has all this baggage, but it's just written in a way that is so completely uninteresting, and like, I just really didn't care about her character from the jump. And not to mention, she keeps saying these like really, really cringy lines where she's like, it may prove to be impossible to find someone as dark as me, someone with an ugly, morbid side. Oh my gosh, okay, Lydia's not like the other girls. But then I also found Adam's chapters to be like equally as cringy, and I thought that his perspective would be more interesting, you know, because he's the serial killer, and I thought maybe his voice would be more similar to like Joe Goldberg or even like Silence of the Lambs, like something creepy like that. But like, no, in my opinion, this guy Adam was so incredibly boring. And I think the reason why sometimes a serial killer perspective can intrigue me in a book is because usually I feel like they're written in a way that's like very humorous and very funny, but this guy was like so dull. He was so one note, and the worst part about him is that he thinks that he's like brilliant and like 10 steps ahead of everyone. I mean, he says lines like this where he's like, I'm charismatic, articulate, and confident. Like, okay, sir. I feel like Lydia's perspective just also really bored me in this book because even though she's a forensic photographer, I feel like a lot of her perspective just kind of reads like a detective point of view, because it's like they're just showing up at these cases after these people have been murdered, and she's taking pictures and they're talking about how, oh my god, we've never seen anything like this before, and like, this is the worst death that we've ever seen in our lives, and like, they just keep repeating that every time they go to a new case. I think the main reason why the writing didn't work for me in this book either is because there was never any high stakes. Like, any time in this book there was like a moment of like tension being introduced into the story, it was resolved within like a page. And because I didn't care about these characters at all, like, I never cared about him potentially getting caught. And then, as if that wasn't bad enough, in like the second half of this book, they start to do this like romance thing that's happening, and it was just so cringy to me and so bad, because we have the cringiest lines of all time, like, I was late because I was daydreaming about you, and I've never felt more alive in my entire life, and I never liked that phrase making love, but I believe in it now. I don't think I've ever been this happy in my life. It's terrifying. Like, we get a lot of stuff like that where it's a lot of telling us instead of showing us. I mean, the romance thing is like far-fetched enough, but I'm like, okay, but why do you like each other? So I never felt invested in the romance either. And there were just so many things about the second half that was like making me roll my eyes that I was like, that is so unrealistic. You know, in a lot of ways, this book actually did remind me quite a bit of the Mindfuck series. I can definitely see some people comparing that to this because I do think there's a lot of crossover there. The writing definitely reminded me of the Mindfuck series, but you know, I actually enjoyed some of the Mindfuck series books. Like, I really enjoyed the last 2 books in that series, but otherwise, like, I didn't really care for that series too much. And I think there was so much about this book that reminded me of that series. So sadly, I think I might actually end up giving this 1 star, which I feel terrible doing that, not only because this is one that my friend Brittany recommended. So that's already really upsetting enough, you know, like as it is, but I also hate to give this 1 star because this book doesn't have that many reviews on Goodreads, and I always feel terrible to give a low rating to a book that doesn't have that big of a readership. But at the same time, like, I have to be honest, I have to speak my truth. I always tell myself that if the book has 0 positive things that I can say about it, then that's a 1 star. Like, there's nothing about this book that I'm like, oh yeah, that part was pretty good. Like, nothing. So sadly, we are ending this video with my lowest rating out of all of the things, but otherwise, I would say that this video was a massive success, mostly because I read 2 books in this video that I absolutely loved that I had never even heard of before. So I think just for that reason alone, I think this video was incredibly successful, and I'm so grateful to my friend Brittany for like reading these books. You know, like, this video has been in the works for months. My friend Brittany is incredible. She's been reading all of these books, taking the time to try and find things to recommend to me for a while now. So like, I really appreciate all of the effort that she put into this project too. And we've been talking about the idea of potentially doing a round 2 of this in the future. So if that's something that you would like to see, where she controls another week of my reading with 5 more book recommendations, then let me know, because we would love to do that again at some point this year. And yeah, that is going to be a wrap on this video. So please do let me know if you've read any of these books. What are your thoughts on them? Thank you so much for watching as always, and I'll see you very soon with another video. Bye.